Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Chaotic Neutral powered by Motorola Edge Plus. I'm your host Sabrina, and as you noticed, Connor cannot make it today. He is busy prepping the team for playoffs, which we are really excited about. But don't worry guys, I have an equally amazing guest that I'm going to call up on my new Edge Plus to join us. So let me see if I can get him on here. Hey Greg, are you here?
Hey Sab, good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going.
Greg, do you mind introducing yourself to the people who might not be familiar about what you do here at Evil Geniuses?
Yeah, sure. I'm Greg Kim. I'm Director of Esports. Basically, as it pertains to LCS, I'm the director of all things here in LA, just sort of running the team, informing on the business, and just doing all the fun things it takes to keep a League of Legends team going and hopefully winning.
For sure. And speaking of winning, we have playoffs coming up. We ended the regular season 6th place. Was that what you were expecting this season?
I think I would say we expected a wide range of things this season, like including both spring split and summer split, right? I think like if you rewind it all the way back to November, like we always knew we would have a high variance team coming into the league. So nothing was out of the range of expectation. Anything is possible, and sort of that's how our season ended up, and that's how we feel going into playoffs. So it pretty much was within the range of expectations, I'd say.
Totally. And how do you feel about like our first playoffs match?
I'll be honest with you, like on I guess it was Sunday when all the matches were being decided, and I guess it didn't matter for tiebreakers, but after our match, I sort of tuned out and I like went home from the office and stuff, and then I didn't turn on the stream until like a little bit later, like when the tiebreakers were being played, and then like they showed the playoff bracket and like FlyQuest was on the screen. I was like, of course it's FlyQuest, of course it's freaking FlyQuest, like just because we played them twice in the spring playoffs. Like we 2-0'd them last split, they 2-0'd us this split in the regular season. Like they're like our bona fide like live good, live evil rivals, and I play a lot of League and Valorant with their management staff, so it just feels like it was the matchup that was destined to be, and hopefully we destroy them this time.
I know. I saw a bunch of tweets coming from a lot of FlyQuest staff, including Trisha, their CEO, that was just like, it's time to like live good, and like they posted like their little fish and stuff. So I thought it was actually like funny that the LCS narrative went that way.
Yeah, I mean, like it's in a way, it's like it's kind of nice. I mean, like matchup wise, like we feel like we can, like and we feel like we could have played against anyone in the first round, but it's particularly nice because like this is kind of a budding rivalry. I mean, like Go Green like fits pretty nicely against like LIVEEVIL as like there's sort of a juxtaposition there, and like I mean Trish is a very visible CEO for FlyQuest, and Nicole's obviously a very visible CEO for us. It's all the seeds of a rivalry, and like I think particularly with this is our first new year in the LCS, like it's like the budding seed of hopefully it's what becomes like a big rivalry in the LCS, like akin to like C9 TSM or C9 TL, Totally. So we'll see. It should be fun. I imagine like there's going to be a lot of talking on Discord this week.
Totally. That'll be a lot of fun to see as well.
Yeah.
Man, what are your feelings about the other matchups? I mean, I need to pull this up on my phone real quick, but was there anything that like really stood out to you?
Let's look. I mean, I think it'll get like, it won't get spicy. I mean, the other like matchup in like the upper bracket to start is GG TSM. I think that'll be pretty interesting. I mean, TSM's honestly like playing at a fairly high level now, but I mean, GG, like Golden Guardians are on an upswing, so like that should be a fun matchup. I think like the interesting wrinkle about this playoffs this time around is like because it's an 8-team format, like the first and second seeds don't get to pick their opponents until the next round. So like just seeing who like TL like coming out of first place, who they decide they want to go against in the first round, like whether it's us or FlyQuest or whether it's TSM or Golden Guardian. I think like that's where the intrigue starts to happen. But like, I mean, the other crazy part about all of this is like, particularly like given the end of the season, like if you're in the upper bracket, like you win 2 best-of-5 series and you go to Worlds. Like that's what's crazy. Like everything's sort of on the line right now. Like even if you drop to losers bracket, you're 3 series victories away from just like going to the World Championship. I don't know. It'll be pretty fun, I think. I really like the new format. I kind of remember like being in the room at Riot when we were talking about this format, like before I think it was after the end of last summer split. Like, it's pretty exciting. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it goes well for us.
Totally, yeah. No, I have the exact same feelings about this. Like, I think this new format is a lot of fun. There's a lot of buy-in for each team to do it because, like, you just feel like you're that close to getting to Worlds, right? And now that people know that Worlds is even happening, it's going to be the biggest esports event of 2020, if the only big one. So, there's a lot at stake here. There's a lot of teams, that have multiple teams in different esports that have been funneling a lot of resources and time to not only market, but also build their team during this playoffs time. Like, I am really excited to see what teams really decide to do during this playoffs run, because for some teams, it's going to be their last time to play in 2020. You have nothing else to do. So we'll see all the buy-in. And I agree with you. I think the GG TSM game will actually be a lot of fun. I think GG has been ramping up rapidly, and TSM has been looking like second, if not the best team currently right now.
I mean, and like the crazy part about all of this, like I feel like, any one of these teams, like I feel like it's reasonable to expect any permutation of these teams to go to Worlds. Like, even with how strong Golden Guardians has been playing, like, and like with how, it was pretty much a lock up until the last couple of weeks that like C9 was going to be one of our teams, right? But like, it actually feels like anything can happen these playoffs to an extent. I mean, same for us. Like, we feel, I mean, this has always been the case with us, but we feel like we can beat anyone, and like there's always a chance that we'll lose to anyone. So, I mean, it should be super hype, I think, no matter what way you cut it.
Yeah, and speaking of C9, which you brought up, do you think they're going to make Worlds?
I have to think so. I mean, like, the thing about regular season in NA is like, this is the age-old argument, but like best of ones just mean like there's so much volatility there, right? And like I think C9 is such a high-quality team that like it's hard for me to see them like just like crashing through. Like they would have to lose what? They have to lose. I mean, I don't see them losing that many best of 5 series, basically, unless like something really crazy happens and like they're big upsets and they have to face like 2 really strong opponents, like in the lower bracket. Well, I guess upper and lower bracket. Like I don't know. Like I also like the weird thing in all of this is like there's a brand new patch and it's a huge patch right before playoffs. Like we're scrimming the next couple of days before our match on Friday, like on 10/16 and. Like it was a massive patch. Like even if you look at the patch notes, like how they show the champion icons for like every champion that was like buffed or nerfed, it's like 10 champions like in buffs and like 8 champions in nerf, which is like way more than usual. So like it's depending how you look at it, it's either like exciting as a viewer and like spicy, or like from competitive integrity reasons, it's kind of meh because like in reality, like we're getting. Like some teams are only going to get like 3, like the teams that play on Thursday, like they get to scrim maybe like yesterday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and like that's it, right? And they got to play. Yeah. So that's like 15 games to figure out what champs are OP and not,
Totally.
So it'll be spicy. I think it'll be spicy. Who knows? Like in some ways, it's just as much about how fast can you read the meta as it is like can you be good at League of Legends.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that tweet by Nasser, aka Empire, on Twitter, and he said that LEC gets 2 weeks on the new patch, but LCS only gets a couple days. Like,
yeah, and like that.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's hard, right? Like the interesting thing is like this is what's good about Riot and what's tricky about running the LCS because. League of Legends is an ever-evolving game, right? You're on a 2-week patch cycle no matter what. And that, like, virtually never really changes. But, like, when you... And, like, so in some ways, like, when you're patching, like, League of Legends and when you're working on the game, like, you're living in, like, League of Legends world and timelines, right? Like, as a game developer, like, you're focused on making, like, the most balanced and the best game possible with paying some attention to the professional play, right? Like I think we learned from like that, like I forget what year it was Worlds. It was like the Juggernaut Worlds where like tanks became super strong right before like the most important time of the year. Like they don't do that anymore. It's not that crazy. But like you're still patching every 2 weeks. And I think with 10/16 Riot was like making the push for like this is like the big patch before the Worlds patch, it feels like. And like LCS, meanwhile, like even though League of Legends is on a set schedule, like trying to make those changes before Worlds, LCS is on like a calendar schedule, right? Like we're scheduling, like the league is probably scheduling around like COVID considerations, around like when we thought the summer final would be, like if there's an arena, and like that's all based on like when you book the arena, like months out. Not that like it was ever going to be a possibility with COVID at this point, but like it just sucks because like LEC was like a couple weeks delayed, I guess, and like we're just like heading into playoffs, and it just kind of is what it is. But I mean, all the teams are on equal playing field, more or less. I mean, like the first and second seeds will get to see like 2 best-of-5 series to get a better read on the meta, so like it's a slight advantage for them. But otherwise, I mean, like, you know, FlyQuest has just as many days of scrims as we do, I think. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
You're totally right there.
Yeah.
It's not like at this point, right, like there is any team with an advantage. Like we all kind of dealt a kind of bad hand, but we're making the best of it. And I mean, I know like how these LCS teams scrim, and they're trying to get the most out of what they can. There's not that many days, right? So
Yeah.
taking each day with like a lot of effort and a lot of time to like really just get the most you can and learn the most you can in a short amount of time. So we'll see how this goes. I am really excited to see what EG does. I think that our team is very volatile, as you mentioned. And I guess like the upside of that is just like we can win like literally any game. Like we've beat C9 like with a roster that, you know, had only played with each other for a week, and like that stuff can happen, right? So
we genuinely feel like we could beat anyone. Like no joke. Like it's not like PR speak. We genuinely feel like we could beat anyone.
Definitely. Well, cool. I guess what I kind of want to talk about now is like a little bit of what's happening behind the scenes, like within League of Legends and the LCS community. Now that we've kind of divvied up of how we feel on playoffs. So, you know, first off, super funny and I think pretty cool is that the LCS has actually partnered up with Buffalo Wild Wings. I want to know, what's your take on this?
I mean, more partners for the LCS is always good from our team perspective, right? Like we like to see the team, like the league being going out and successful. But I think like partnerships like these are kind of interesting because you're just increasing like your reach, right, and your exposure, right? I forget all the details of the Buffalo Wild Wings thing, but it's like it involves like putting LCS on like in a bunch of the branches, right? And like I think like, you know, it's interesting, right? Because like plays like this, stuff like Barcade like Barcraft back in the day, like there's sort of like you have to hit. It's like there's a timing element to it, right? Because like you want the audience to be receptive to it, and like you definitely want Buffalo Wild Wings to be like happy that like they're showing League of Legends in their locations and their franchises and whatnot. But like it feels like good timing, right? Because I think, given the COVID pandemic, I mean, like other traditional sports are finally starting back up. But like for a long time, it's been like just esports that people have been able to watch. And I think like we've seen in like the uptick in some viewership numbers that like it's truly like been like the competitive entertainment medium of like the pandemic. So I don't know what this will actually look like for Buffalo Wild Wings locations, like as stuff opens back up and like as social distancing is a thing, but to get LCS broadcasted in more locations and like just giving exposure to the league to more people is definitely a great thing, right? Particularly as we think about like expanding to like the non-endemic audience that we always talk about. So I don't know, pretty exciting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, from my personal experience, when I was in college, I actually ran a lot of watch parties, and one of our biggest events was Worlds. You know, whether it was in Asia or Europe or crazy times, we would have watch parties, and Buffalo Wild Wings was one of the few franchises that would support the collegiate esports scene and have us have their watch parties at like 5 a.m. At their facilities, and it was cool. Like, I think a lot of patrons might have been a little confused, but because Worlds was at such wacky times, there wasn't a lot of like normies per se there, and it was just a bunch of college kids and people in the local area who wanted to celebrate Worlds together. So I know Buffalo Wild Wings has been a long-time supporter of League of Legends and esports, and I think even, I don't know if they have it currently, but back in the day they sponsored Dignitas. So
Yeah.
This is not the first time
I
touching
just
esports.
genuinely like going to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch sports, right? You just like sit there, get a drink, get your boneless wings, and just like hang out. Yeah. Even like when I was in like consulting, like we'd randomly just like after work, just like go to a nearby Buffalo Wild Wings sometimes just to like hang out. It was pretty good. So
And now, like, people get
do that and watch
exposure.
League. Yeah. Next
Exactly.
up, put PCs there and like create Buffalo Wild Wing PC box and just rip up solo queue. I don't know.
We did that actually, like for our World's viewing parties. They let us like bring PCs
Really?
like into the Buffalo Wild Wings, and like we lined it up on a wall, and people would be playing it. It was just like super cool.
That's wild. No pun intended.
I see what you did.
That was not intentional.
Okay. But yeah, the second thing I actually want to talk about was this really cool thing that I think Team Liquid is doing, and I think a lot of teams have been thinking about for a long time, but never pulled the trigger, and that was Liquid Plus. So if you're not familiar, those of you back home, Liquid Plus is this new app that Team Liquid has created that supports their fandom, and basically in this app, if you watch games, if you go to events, if you tweet, if you share something that they do, if you watch their YouTube videos, you get points. And like as you accumulate these points, you get rewards. I think this is super cool. Never seen this before in the LCS or I think in general esports. What are your thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really exciting. I haven't had the chance to like dig into the app itself or like the nuances of the program, but like I saw the overview of the program and some of the tweets and stuff. Like, it's really exciting, I think. And I think it's really cool to see an org like Liquid that's been around and obviously been as successful in LCS over the past couple of years, like take advantage of that in a way. Like, I think esports orgs, like we're always looking for ways to create like stickiness among our fans, right? Like why be a Team Liquid fan? Why be a C9 fan? Like why be, I mean, particularly for Liquid this year, right? Like why be a Liquid fan over a Double If fan? Like if you were someone who came to Liquid because Double If came to the team, like what does your fandom for Liquid look like in a post Double If world? Like, this is like, I think the program is like a really cool way of trying to like create some of that stickiness. And like, you know, you want to, as a team, like in addition to just like the wins and like the great content and whatnot, like you want to give people reasons to like, to stick with you, right? And be a fan, right? Like I think trying to bank your fandom on just like success in the LCS is like highly variable. Like particularly like with the season with best on ones, like with the league being with the parity that there is in the league right now. Like I think finding new ways to create a community or just like create like the rituals that people can come together and support your team are pretty important. And like this is definitely like a sign of one of those things, right? Like some of the stuff that we're doing with collegiate is like another way of trying to engage that. Like there are many different ways to cut it, but this is an exciting one for sure. Like I saw the drops and like for that they gave out a little bit like to some of the influencers, and like those are really sick. And if they could continue to like do that kind of thing, I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. I think like the development of the app and like having a team like kind of go that far to like, you know, basically just support their fandom is pretty cool. I know like, you know, TSM has a lot of really cool like diversified portfolio items like as well like in tech, and I think that it's important for LCS teams to like consider these different avenues of engagement, right? It doesn't always have to be we play a game and you watch. Like there needs to be these touch points that are important and build fandom, and again, like as you said, stickiness. I think Team Liquid specifically is very interesting because people were fans of them because they were winning. Just like a lot of fans of Cloud9. They are the number one team. You want to support the number one team. And maybe you have a favorite player. And like, as you mentioned, when Double Lift left, how did they re-engage their audience? Like, if they had lost this split, like, would they have been as successful like in their merchandise sales and things like that? Like those are things to consider. So they've been making the right moves. Definitely.
I think like it's interesting, right? As particularly like as a competing org in the LCS or like in esports in general, like I don't know, like these are always like seeing another team try something new is always a great learning opportunity, right? Like, and I think like it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Like Liquid's done a lot of cool things across the board recently, like their recent merch drop looked pretty good also on top of this. Like, so they're pushing across the board. Like, these are learning moments for us, right? And I particularly like as a new org in the LCS, although EG's been around for a very long time, right? But at least like in my mindset in terms of like our presence and our brand in League of Legends, it's like, okay, like how, like look at what everyone else is doing and like how can we come at it from a different angle, or is there an interesting take on like a new medium that we can put out into the market? Like this is where like, you know, I got memed early in this split for going on Hotline League and like saying like we have the smartest leadership in esports. I don't remember how I phrased it, but like it's not just about like the back office moves and like putting together a team. Like this was our first time doing that, but like it's also like how do you learn and adapt, right? Because like a lot of being smart means like learning quickly, right? And like that actually came off as a little, I don't know. Anyway, like a lot of about like it's our ability to succeed in the long term is like experimenting and seeing what others are doing and like learning from those things. And I think like this is another one of those opportunities, right? Like, is this something that we could pursue? Is like, how is our collegiate stuff going? Like, are there other opportunities out there? Like, esports is a new sports field, right? And like we need to find new ways to like hit out our fans or potential fans, particularly like during this pandemic. So I don't know. It's just really exciting to see this stuff from Liquid, and it just makes the brain think about like what we can do going forward. I'm sure you have thoughts too. I'm excited to see what you come up with.
Yeah, that's like kind of my job now. You know, building all these like interesting programs and like theorizing on all these ideas. And you're totally right. Like I am invigorated, like seeing other teams win, like in terms of like outside of the game. Like we win in the game, but like I love seeing what other teams are experimenting with and working with and how it plays out. There is a lot of learning lessons there, not just for, you know, teams within the LCS, but broader esports. I think the LCS franchise team works at a pace that is unmatched to others. And I think that's why a lot of teams like coming into LCS franchising face this like kind of like wall, you know, like you get hit by this different kind of experience and understanding and needs than other esports leagues. And you need to just develop faster. You need to move faster. You need your social media team to work good. Like, it's just the demands are just completely different. So,
and I would say it's like, it's not only that, it's also like, because we're in a franchise system now and like, because we're in this permanent partnership era, like, at least from my perspective, seeing a team like bring something to the space and contribute to the league and like invest in like the league or the ecosystem, like that's always like a good thing to see, right? Like Liquid's bringing something new to the table. Like you want to see people like bringing something, like we're like teams that are here not just to be here, but teams who are here to like advance the space. So I mean, ideally, I hope that we continue to be one of those teams, and like Liquid's one of those teams. We don't want to be one of the teams that's just kind of occupying a spot, you know?
Totally.
So, yeah.
I mean, I get that. Some teams came to mind there. But yeah. Finally, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about moves that have happened post regular season. And CLG announced that they had released Coach Song and Weldon last night, as of this recording. Weldon followed up with this tweet that's saying, like, I have this family in Los Angeles and, you know, I have no income now during a pandemic, which is true. I mean, he's not lying there. What are your thoughts on that? Because fandom did not take that well, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't really see the community reaction, so I'm speaking a little blind here, but like it felt a little fast, but it's kind of understandable. Like I think CLG, I saw a tweet from Travis, like it's probably one of the worst years in franchising, right? I think they had a total of 8 wins over the course of both splits, and like it's I think it's definitely a tricky situation. I think like it's clear something wasn't working there. It's hard to know exactly what. Like I think I almost forgot that like Crown was their starting mid laner like at the start of spring split, and like that blew up, and like it's just kind of crazy to think about what that team went through and like what the drop off was from year over year. Like in reality, from the CLG of last summer, like what was the difference? It was just like Biofrost essentially, Biofrost and Power of Evil. So I don't know. I mean, I think like it's particularly, I don't know. Like this is going to be my first like off-season move, like with a team, right? Because last off-season was no so team. Crazy. Yeah. So like I think for me it feels a little fast because because once our season's over, I anticipate it's not gonna be like okay, we're gonna make all these changes. Like it feels in a way like CLG was just kind of waiting to pull the trigger on this, because for us, like it'll be a process, right? Like our season will end whenever it ends, whether it's in like 3 weeks or whether it's like in October in China, like. And after that, like we'll take the time to decompress, right? And we'll take the time to like step away from like the immediate result and the result of being eliminated, and talk about sort of the like the state of our roster, the state of our coaching, like everything across the board, and like evaluate and move forward, right? Like that feels like the healthy way to do things. I don't think there would ever be a world in which like we're just waiting for our season to end just to like snap and pull the trigger. And it's interesting because like some teams in the league have just kind of like immediately released their academy players as soon as the season ends. Like I don't know if that's like common practice yet. Like I'm still learning in this space, but I think we want to do right by our guys and our coaches and whatnot. So like we'll take the time to think about it. Certainly, I mean, it may very well be that CLG made up their mind a long time ago. But I don't know. Like it felt a little fast to me, but I kind of understand it given the performance of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I totally echo you. Like for me, I understand why they did it. Like fans, number one, CLG fans have been calling this since like I don't know, years ago. Like they really wanted this change. But at the same time, you have to be cognizant of like what that messaging is to like your staff and future players, right?
Well,
like
also to the public, right? I think the hardest thing has been like you don't necessarily know what the plan was, right? Like they like and like you can't really know as an outside fan. Like this is what like we always talk about internally, right? Like coaches and staff, like we see 22 games a week. We see 4 days of scrims and we see the 2 games on stage, and like you see your players each one of those days. Like the public just sees those 2 games on stage, and it's hard to know what's going on beyond the scenes. And like CLG, like they've gone through a lot, right? Like they replaced their starting mid laner, like they got rid of Crown for Pro Belter. Like this split, they also tried like Deus in the top lane for Ruin. They randomly, maybe not randomly, but they put in Tuesday and Fragus, like while they still had a shot at playoffs, like changed up their roster, and like presumably they had reasons to do those things. And like the what you don't see or know is like if the coaches were behind those decisions, if like staff, like front office staff as a whole was behind those decisions, like if player behavior was like a factor, if player mental health was a factor, and like team, like ideally like teams can be transparent about those things so the public can like kind of get on board, but it's hard, right? And so like particularly when you see like a firing of coaches like this quickly, like is it because they like the coaches were behind those calls and like the organization feels embarrassed? Like is it because like the team thought the roster was good and the coaches were just failing the roster? Like it can be one of a million things, and it's so hard to know as an outsider. So like I think all that is fair to say is like it feels a little fast. Like you get eliminated and you do it right away, but who knows what's going on over there? I don't know. Like, it's been, I mean, they had a strong summer split last year, and like the turnaround's pretty dramatic. So I can see why they'd be disappointed for sure. But I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a hard league out there.
Exactly, and like I'll be interested to see who they backfill for this position, and who is. I don't know. Like I would feel like I would be taking a risk, right? Like going to an organization that is willing to drop their coach, like even before playoffs started. Like that is insane to me. And I think for a lot of players too, right? Like, are they going to resign? Like, what are they going to do? Like, they don't have that leadership there anymore. So it'll be interesting to see who is willing to take that risk going to an organization as volatile in terms of this.
Yeah, and like
CLG.
Also like same goes for like sports, like traditional sports back teams, right? Like CLG is Madison Square Garden, right? And like we have other sports back teams in our league, and like those are all businesses that are like that don't pull in gate revenue for their traditional sports anymore, and like gate revenue, like tickets to arenas and stuff, like that makes up a big chunk of like the revenue of traditional sports. So like they're all gonna have to adapt. Like they're all adapting to a new reality. Like I'm curious to see what like the impact on esports is gonna be. Just given all these things, like on one hand, it's like on one hand it means like there's less revenue to sort of play in the playground of esports if it's not like a priority for your org. But if it is a priority for your org, like it's a new opportunity to try to like engage during a pandemic, right? So it'll be interesting to see how like different sports back teams in the LCS like react to the pandemic for sure. So I don't know what that means for CLG. I mean, the Knicks aren't in the Knicks aren't in the NBA bubble right now, so they ain't got nothing else going on. I don't know.
Honestly, man, we'll see. Anyways, we are really excited to see what playoffs is going on. Unfortunately, CLG will not be there, but we are, and we'll be playing FlyQuest this week. So hopefully you guys tune in. I want to give a huge thank you to Greg for joining me this morning. I know that you guys have to support the guys in the facility where you are right now. So shout outs to you and the team. Hopefully we get some good juju and make it happen.
Yeah, everyone eats sushi on Thursday night.
Yeah, let's see. Let's make it happen.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys also for listening, and thank you to Motorola Edge Plus for sponsoring this episode. We will talk to you next week. Bye.